The winner for the Client of the Year is Adrian Chaz from Nelson Alarms. There you go, mate. Mate, what are the results that you're most proud of over the last 12 months?
Yeah, we've sorted our business structure, spent a lot of time, which has freed me up heaps. I've seen a huge increase in our business results. Our sales have grown by 22%, up 700k in a year. The first quarter of this year, we've seen a further 17% growth, and we're on track for over 4 mil in sales. Margins have been pretty consistent in the mid 40% GPs.
I reckon we should have a bit of a chat. Is that cool? Let's do that. Grab a seat, Chief. I've got really 3 questions, and then we can open up to questions as well. I've got maybe 10 or 15 minutes, so is that all good?
Of course.
Mate, what are the results that you're most proud of over the last 12 months? That's what I'd love to know.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I guess in the last 12 months, as you mentioned, we've got Chaz and Alistair here as new business partners, and that's been huge for us in that last 12 months, bringing on business partners. And yeah, we've sorted our business structure, spent a lot of time, which has freed me up heaps. I was just being bogged down in stuff that I shouldn't have been. Do some good hires, like putting an estimator in and things like that, and just so that I can operate more where I need to be as a business owner. We're seeing a huge increase in our business results in the past year. It was quite interesting actually looking back, like you sort of mentioned there. Our sales have grown by 22%, up 700k in a year. The first quarter of this year, we've seen a further 17% growth, and we're on track for over 4 mil in sales, which is, you kind of pinch yourself sometimes. That's actually, see that sort of growth. It's awesome. Margins have been pretty consistent in the mid 40% GPs. And it was interesting because going through the whole process with bringing these guys on board and things, we had to do market valuations and business valuations and things like that. And I thought, well, because things have increased so much, let's do another one. And we did that recently just to get a bit of a feel for if that was flowing through. And yeah, with the accountant, paying them a little bit of money to do that. But yeah, since having these guys on, we've increased the business valuation by 69%. And I was like, that's cool.
Chaz is like, whoa, yeah.
You bought into the right thing, mate. So
Killer.
Happy days, yeah. It's like you said, investments, your business is your best investment.
Yeah, that's something we've talked about at Boardroom a lot is, we talk about investing in shares and property and all that sort of stuff, but actually the best investment for all of us is our business. That's where we're going to make the most money, and if you turn it into something that's a saleable asset, or to an extent, you get a lot of equity value out of it, you get a multiplier, so it's a great place to invest. Talk about lessons, shall we? Yep. So what have been the biggest lessons learned?
The importance of finding and sticking to your niche. We found that it's doing the right sort of jobs that you can find that you can be a jack of all trades and think, oh well, you'll take all the work and things, but becoming a specialist and really realizing that's being the go-to company in your field. I think that's been a sort of in the last little while a realization for us. And then alongside of that, don't undersell yourself, your company, but also you as a business owner. I know that a couple of people have mentioned this in the last few days. Getting to know your numbers is the first thing that PT really drill into you, but it's so huge, because if you're not measuring it, like I've just rattled off a couple of things there. If you're not doing your KPIs and you're doing your monthlies, how the hang are you going to know if you're getting there? And backing yourself. So this is probably the key one, really. Giving your staff autonomy in the roles and holding them to account so that they step up. For too long, I wasn't great at delegating. I was just thinking, oh well, I can do that. Everyone else is too busy, so I'll just do it. But and getting bogged down in the operation, didn't see myself as a CEO. So we've talked about this quite a bit, in terms of what was holding me back. It was a mindset of not actually truly seeing myself as that. But now getting more of a handle on what this is, and not feeling bad about working on stuff, like working on the business, because you might have thought, well, everyone else is busy with the ops stuff and there's prices to get out and things like that, so I'll just pitch in, and feeling a little bit bad about spending time on working on the business, just getting over it, and realizing that everyone needs you to be doing that to move forward.
Yeah, killer. Yeah, good stuff. And that shift to being a CEO, I mean, how did you make that shift? What helped you make that shift? I guess I'd be keen to understand.
Definitely PT and the coaches. A lot of on our squads and our small groups to actually just work through that, because it's one thing being told that or identifying that, but actually really working through, like, what is it that sits in behind that? Why do you feel like that? And we've had some pretty open conversations around that, and I think just being open to it and just like not just like, oh yeah, but it's actually there was an underlying thing. It probably did take a little while to actually work through and break it down.
Yeah. 100%. Okay, so I have one more question, and then we can field some questions, which would be amazing if you have questions. What would you say to someone who's actually really wanting to grow their business, maybe listening today or online, but is feeling a bit stuck at the moment? What would be your advice?
You can't grow past your capacity, and doing those how many tradesmen, how many support people, and all that sort of exercises is really, really key, because otherwise you just think, well, you know, I can't afford to bring on that estimator, or maybe it's not me for an ops manager. I know it works for someone else, but not in my business. So I think really that's really key, just to sit down and go, okay, this is where we are now. Draw an organisation chart with some empty boxes and think this is the future. That's a really, really good starting point, because you might think, oh, well, that's good for you, mate, because you've got a big team. But it's the same idea for someone that's got 2 or 3 people in their business. Yeah.
Awesome. Team, questions for Adrian. If you have a question, please jump up to the microphone. If you're online, just write question in the chat, and we'll blast through some questions, because it should be fun. Oh, Lisa's up there. This will be a toughie.
No, it won't be. Well done. I'm really happy for you. I'm stoked for you. First up, so when you went to move from kind of helping everyone and moving into a CEO role, did you employ anyone to take your place, or you just kind of handed more out to everyone?
Yep, good question. Chaz came on board as the estimator. Before that, you were doing some of that. I'm just trying to cast my mind back to what it looked like. It was, everyone was kind of doing a little bit of that, and there was no real ownership with it, and so we identified, like, you need to, like, I remember in boardroom, they were like, you need to sort the estimator, mate. And I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm sweet, I can do that as well, hybrid. But it wasn't really until we took that plunge and brought you fully on in that position that made the difference.
So the key was you actually backfilled.
Yep.
So you were able to fulfill the role of a CEO, not trying to do 2 or 3 roles.
There's no way I could have been operating in that way with being bogged down.
Yeah. Mike.
Adrian, like, you've achieved so much going forward and to where you got to now. Have you got a vision for yourself for the next few years moving forward, or you're finding it hard that you've got, like, to the top now? So where do you see yourself going from here on?
Maybe 5-6 months ago, I remember having a chat with Tony. I was actually feeling a bit stuck about that, and you feel like you get to a certain point and you're like, oh, well, shouldn't you be happy about that? But then if you're don't have the next thing, like, you lose the motivation. And so I think, and I was talking to Cam just before about that session that we just went through, and that was really, really good timing for me, because I guess you kind of do get to that point. It's like, and what's the point of all this if it doesn't tie back to your personal goals? And so what we've done here, we're going to take that away and just really take it to the next level away. And you know, it's like, what are these guys looking for? What are we looking for? How does the business pay for that, basically? How do we get the profitability in? And yeah.
Hey, congratulations, mate. My question was, since delegating all these roles out to various people, what's a typical day look like for you now?
Working on projects that we've identified, 6-week plan, or stuff that you're working with PT. So it's really just working on that, and probably a lot more accountability to the guys or to my management team. Now it's kind of weird saying that, like, I've got a management team, but it was like your key people and just putting a label on it. And actually Tim and Dylan, you guys have been real helpful. Where are you guys? Yeah, we actually caught up with these guys, like, because they were talking about their key deliverables and things, which is basically just the accountability that each role has, and then having them sheets and stuff like that. And I was like, man, can we find out more about that? And just sitting down with them, that's been huge for us, absolutely huge. And so that it gives them, like, or gives us the structure around having these meetings. Otherwise it would have been everyone sits around and it's real loose, but now we actually turn up and go, right, this is what's happening, this is my sheet and I'm delivering to that. And so it's just actually bringing that accountability, and I guess I'm kind of chairing the meeting, or just like bringing the leadership to that.
The question I've got, I'd love to hear a bit more about your growth and find out if you know the answer. where that growth came from, whether it was taking it from another competitor or breaking new ground in a different region, or there's just lots of opportunities that were sailing past you, and you were able to capitalize on once you got some business partners on board.
What used to be considered a big job and you might do 1 or 2 of them a year seems to be there's a lot more of them happening, and I think that's us really being intentional about what it is where we're focusing our efforts, because you can focus on the wrong sort of jobs, and that's really knowing your numbers again, because I think knowing what sort of where you're focusing your efforts and your pricing really. We can spend a whole bunch of time and money working on putting in, say for our industry, it's alarm. We know that you can make X amount off an alarm install versus a camera system. It's a lot more profitable, maybe 3 times as profitable, but the same amount of resource been putting into it. And so it's us like, okay, well, because we know that, and then it's really helpful for us to know where we're going to put our limited resource. Everyone's only got a certain amount of tradies and a certain amount of hours and things like that they can charge out. But I guess on top of that, going to the next level is kind of like the more big project work in the niche that you're doing that's profitable, not just commercial work that's 20% GP. Then we do that, and then it kind of attracts more of that same sort of business. That's what we've found is that, and then we're like, oh gosh, we did like half a dozen of those jobs rather than last year we did 1.
My question was, what was the niche in your security industry that you concentrated on?
Found like schools for us is really good. I guess the niche for us was maybe not just doing one thing either. It was finding jobs that we could do multiple systems and tie them together, and it made us a really different from our competitors, I think. It's like that they might just do 1 or 2 and we can do a whole stack of them and link them all together and add a lot more value, and then we can charge accordingly. But it is something that you have to keep looking at though, eh? You can't just think, oh, that's always been what we need to do. You're just constantly looking at what's working, what's coming through.
Follow-up question on your niche. How were you able to stay focused on your niche? Like I'm assuming there were times when it's like, whoa, I don't know, a week from now, 2 weeks from now, whatever your timeline, that's like not as great. Let's just fill it in with this job or with that job, fill something else in there, as well as that's on the one side of it, as well as on the other side of it, staying focused on your niche. When a great customer you have a great relationship with comes and says, hey, can you do this as well? And you're like, well,
I think it comes down to knowing the numbers again. And so if we know, like, there will be times that you have a key customer and then we do something that's not our niche as such, but we have to still make it profitable. And guys are getting, they know that it fits a bigger picture, because this customer is, for us, they've got multiple branches and things like that. Sure, we might be doing something that's a little bit different, but we're making sure it really works for us. And I guess, like you touched on filling in, like if we're feeling like we're getting low on work, then how do we fill it in? Then by knowing the niche and knowing our numbers, we don't just jump to agency work for us, which was labour only, no materials, which we would have done in the past. Oh, that's good work because, at least it keeps the guys busy, that sort of mentality. We just cut it and just go, we'd rather not have anything than to do that. And then it makes us just really focus on our niche.
Mate, you're a legend. I have a lot of respect for you. This is a question a little bit out of left field, so hopefully a little bit of a curly one. But it's because I want to know your answer. So you're at the end of your life and people are standing around. What do you want them to say about you?
Gemma?
Hopefully that I added some value. So, I was a good. You'd like to think that people thought not kindly of you and that you contributed in a bigger way than just one person. I don't know. It's a hard one. I mean, that was like, by him being a leader, that it really helped a bunch of people succeed and be better versions of themselves. I guess it's not just business. I mean, we do employ and have a lot of impact on, which some of these guys have already talked about with the apprentice training and like helping them achieve their goals. But also, I'm just thinking of some stuff that I do in the community and like maybe at church and things like that, where I'm actually doing stuff, and it's like people might say, oh, man, you're generous with your time, and it's like you just kind of you'd like to think that it's not just about business and making money, but you can actually then free up your time to be able to help out in sports and kids and other in your schools and things like that. So by being a guy that's not just money hungry driven, but you're actually contributing wider than that.
I think that's the whole point of this day, particularly the planning session, is that business is a vehicle for life, but too often it gets flipped upside down and the business becomes the master and we're the servant. Even though it doesn't feel like it sometimes, actually we allow that to happen. And so it's up to us to flip it around. And I'm not saying that's easy, but that's the whole purpose of what we're doing here, right? Yeah. Awesome, man. Great job. Love your work. And it's actually, we get a lot of pleasure out of seeing people grow and develop. So we've worked together for quite a while, and you're a different guy, and you are a real leader. So that's awesome. Well done. Some love for Adrian. 3, 2, 1. All right. Good stuff, Chief.